Hey, good morning, sports cards fans, and welcome to Hobby Hotline on For Collectors. My name is Dan. I am joined by two of my favorite guys in the entire hobby. I'm so excited about this. We got Orlando. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. Doing great. And Uncle Rich. We got
And we got Uncle Rich down there in balmy Texas. How are you, Uncle Rich?
Cooler than you are in New York City.
Yes. We were at 104 yesterday. And then this massive thunderstorm comes in. Like it only lasted for like a half an hour, but there were trees knocked down and everything. It was crazy. And then it dropped to like the 70s. It literally went down like 30 degrees. But it's back up again. So we'll be all right.
Yeah,
we're not used to this.
Like Uncle Rich said before we went on live, the young guys are on today.
No, here's a rarity. I'm the youngest guy on the screen.
Yeah, that's true.
So our combined ages are more than 250. Just remember
that. And I'm glad you brought that up because as our chat fills up a little bit, and we'll visit with the chat in a second. It's July 4th, and I volunteered to do this show. John was looking for a host, and I said, I'll do July 4th. I got stuff going on later in the day, but 11 o'clock in the morning, I got nothing to do. And I'm excited about this. America 250. I'm old enough. We're all old enough. America 200, 1976. I was 12 years old, and my folks took us in from Long Island to New York to see the tall ships. And it was an experience. I still remember it. And it was, it was a big deal. 1776, 1976. It was a big deal. And so what I'd like to do is start off the show. I'll say hello to the chat, but also to talk about some fun stuff before we get into the not so fun stuff, because we got some July 4th memories, because baseball and July 4th are interconnected. And we'll get to some of the big ones, but they used to play double headers every July 4th. They don't do that anymore. I wish they did. In fact, some teams are off on July 4th, depending upon what day of the week it is. Of course, everybody's going to play today. But so anyway, let me just say hello to the chat, and we'll come back and we'll talk about some July 4th stuff. We've got Mad City Brew was first in here. Good morning, sir. Scott, how are you? Stuke was in the Carlos live stream last night until the bitter end. Vintage Card Collector 433. Happy birthday to America. Indeed, July 4th. Always love this day. Good morning to everyone. Rick Osbun. Okay, not familiar, but hello, sir. Peter B, of course. How are you, sir? Thank you, Peter B, for doing that VR for me. I think you really nailed it on that one. Jim at the bank. Hello, Jim. Abe in Vegas. Good morning. Happy 250. Exactly. That is Ruben Snyder, Confluence Sports Cards. Zach Pierce, again, another guy who was in Carlos till late last night. Indeed. Great group. Very happy to have these two gentlemen with me today. Mike J. Hawker, good morning and happy 4th. Dr. Larry, how are you, sir? Thank you for your wonderful comments on my newest video. Whoa, Eric.
Hit the like button. Eric's here.
Eric's making a joke. There we go. See, we've already made the joke. So Eric, you're behind the times here as usual. Tall Ships in Newport in 76. Yeah, we had it down in South Street Seaport in Manhattan, but hey, there he is, the rookie card specialist, and happy to see you this morning, sir. Collect Washington and Lincoln cards. Yeah, I don't know. I got an important person in General Sherman. Won the Civil War for us. If you know the Civil War, you know. Good morning, Philly Joe. How are you? Dr. Gitlin, Campton, Colorado, with his future wife. There you go. Not 76.
No.
Doctor, I've met you. I don't think you're that old.
It's called time travel, folks.
So I haven't stopped talking. We're 5 minutes in. Orlando, before I bring up some photographs from baseball on July 4th, tell me about July 4th for you, sir.
Well, I mean, July 4th specifically doesn't mean a lot because I celebrate July 4th every single day being here in America as a person that was born in Cuba, born into, unfortunately, socialist or communism. Coming to this country was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. So I celebrate every single day that I'm in this country because it is the greatest country in the world. And I've experienced, what not to be free. So to me, July 4th is a day, but every single day that I'm in the United States is a gift. And, I could quickly share my story if you want to hear it, but, give me a few minutes and I'll talk a little bit about it. I was born in Cuba. I came here when I was 4 years old. My family was a pretty well-to-do family. Both my parents had master's degree. My dad was the senior vice president at the Bank of Havana. We were in Cuba, until 1960, right after Fidel came in. My dad was not with Fidel. He was against Fidel. So he was going to be thrown in jail basically just for disagreeing with the communist government. And we had to come to this country. And we came to this country. We were coming to Miami. And in those days, you had to have a sponsor. And my grandfather had come earlier because the government had taken away both of his, he owned 2 grocery stores. And the government took them away and, made them government grocery stores. So he came to Miami and then he got the visa to be our sponsor to bring us in. And because that's the only way. They didn't give you any handouts. You had to have somebody that would be able to support you. So when we got to the airport, and I was 4 years old, my sister was 3, my other sister was 6 months old. They literally found out that we were not, we were with Batista. So they took away everything we had, all our luggage, all our clothes, my mother's wedding ring, everything. And instead of sending us to Miami, they sent us out to Honduras. And, eventually we were able to get to Miami and live a great life here. But, what you hear about, communism is all true. They promise everything and they don't give anything. And, my dad, my parents and grandparents always told me the story, and I've gone back and read, even though I was a young kid. They promised everything, Dan, everything you hear today, the free healthcare, the free schools, the free, government handouts, the government grocery stores, all of that was promised. And yeah, you have free education, but there's no job to take after you get your education. Doctors and teachers there today are making $15 to $20 a month. And that's a month, $5 a week working full time. The hospitals, there's nothing there. There's no medicine. They're all, gone to crap. And, try to go to the hospital. You can't go. You have to wait, weeks and months just to go to the hospital. They don't have anything there. The free food they promise you, they give you what's called a libreta, which is a little book that tells you what you can get every month. And basically what you get is nothing anymore. You have to stand in line to get a piece of bread and some rice. That's all there is at these grocery stores. When they tell you that what they did was they eliminated capitalism. So my dad had built a brand new house. The government took it away. The government took away all businesses. They privatized everything. No capitalism anymore. All the people that had money, they were, taxed, and they were taxed so much that eventually, because everybody's supposed to be equal in socialist and communist government, everybody's supposed to be equal. What ends up is everybody's equally poor. And at the end, they don't have enough money to take from the rich, because either the rich came to Miami, or they left, or they became poor. And when it gets to a point that they're desperate, and then what they end up doing is they have what they call the el comité, the committee, which is what they do is they have a few communist people in your block that are the people that are like the snitches. So they will tell the government, just to get a little more food and a little more stuff, they tell the government what's going on, who's talking bad about the government, who's doing things in the black market, who's doing stuff illegally, if you're putting your air conditioner on, if you have an air conditioner, but if you're turning it on when you can't, not supposed to, those type of things. And at the end, look how they are today. All the infrastructure is gone. It's not been modernized in years. The same thing happened in Venezuela. The richest country, one of the richest countries in South America, became the poorest country. Cuba, which was one of the richest countries in the area with beautiful scenery. They had all the latest cars back in the 50s, which they still have today. All those cars are now owned by the government. And, the people that drive those are government employees, no private business. If you have a little business, which they allow now, the government takes most of that money. And basically, it's the poorest country in the world. People are starving. The only people that have money there are the government. And most of the Cubans that came to Miami, we made Miami. We made Miami the biggest and best international city in the world. And that's because of all of the top business people and the smartest people in Cuba left once they realized what was going on. So that's why I say that I celebrate July 4th every single day, because to me, this is the best country. And when you get a government like that, the only people that have money or make money are the people that are in the government, and everybody else is the same. They're all poor. So it's the best country in the world. I appreciate every single day that I came here. Since my family came and we had no money, my mom didn't throw anything away. That's why she saved all my baseball cards. And that's what got me back into baseball. And, going to the baseball theme of talking Cuba, and I know I'm talking a lot, but it's just, to me, this is just, I can't tell you how great this country is. And those people that live in America all their life don't realize how great this country is. But, some of the greatest players were in Cuba, and they came here. People like Minnie Minoso and Tony Perez. And later on, you had players like Jose Canseco, Rafael Palmeiro, and, players even, my greatest thrill, I think, was watching Livan Hernandez win the World Series with the Marlins and say, I love Miami, because he was able to get out of Cuba, along with his brother, Orlando Hernandez, El Duque. Yep. And, even today, we have some of the greatest Cuban players here with Aroldis Chapman. You have Jordan Alvarez and players like that are still playing in the majors. And that's Miguel Gonzalez, right?
Yep.
And, I think my biggest story, I think I'll tell, is a player which was supposed to be one of the biggest superstars, Jose Fernandez. He died 10 years ago. I don't know if you remember a pitcher for the Marlins, Jose Fernandez.
Yes, died in a
boat
accident.
Jose Fernandez, he died at 24 years old, unfortunately, in a boating accident, but he tried to leave Cuba 3 times. And he was caught every time, in the rickety rafts that they would create, handmade rafts that they would try to bring. He'd come here in that way, and hundreds and thousands of people died coming through that Gulf of Mexico stretch. And that's not talking about the hundreds and thousands of people that were shot and killed in a firing squad in Cuba because they were against the government. But the story on Jose Fernandez is he was caught the first 2 times that he was trying to come to this country and brought back to Cuba. The third time, he came and brought his mother here. And when he, unfortunately, on the way here, his mother, they had a big storm and his mother fell off the boat and drowned. And he made it to this country. And he was so proud that you could see him every time that he played, that he was one of the happiest guys in the team and so excited just to be here, knowing that even, he was free, even though he had lost his mom. And there's many stories like that. One of your favorites, Dan, is Louis Taint, like you say, Luis Tiant.
Yeah.
Luis Tiant was another great player that came to this country from Cuba. And, he couldn't bring his dad. There he is. He couldn't bring his father, Luis Tiant Sr., who was a legend in Cuban baseball. But finally, at the end of his career, he was able to bring his dad, and his dad literally threw out the first pitch and cried because he was able to see his son pitch and he was able to come to the United States for the first time. So that's a long version of my story and why I'm so proud to be an American and why I'm so proud to be in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America.
It was in the 75 World Series. I think it was Game 6, actually, if I'm not mistaken, that Luis Tiant Sr., here's his Carmel Deportivo, threw out the first pitch and had come to this country for the first time in 1975. And yet he played, this is a 1945 baseball card. So, 30 years later, he gets to come. I really, really appreciate you telling that story, Orlando, and telling your own personal, your own personal experiences and, real life experiences are important to understand because, you can say all this stuff, but when you talk about your situation and being a 4-year-old, on a boat from Honduras, it really hits hard. And, it's one of those things that, I obviously the hobby loves you. We appreciate you every day for what you do for the hobby, but, it's important to understand that there are backstories to everybody in the hobby, and yours is particularly compelling. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us today. Uncle Rich, you got an encore for that?
If you think I'm going to top that, come on, man.
Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey.
but okay, so when I was at Beckett, one of the big July 4th things is Kaboom Town in Addison, which is a suburb of Dallas. It's basically, at that time, Addison was basically a restaurant. And what I mean by that is there were almost no people living there. It was basically just a lot of places to eat. Addison was one of the richest cities in the world because they collected a lot of tax. And they didn't have anybody living there. You talk about having money to put away. They had money to put away and then some. And now a bunch of people are living there. But the thing was, from the Beckett building, when it was built in 1993, we could see the Kaboom Town fireworks from the parking lot. And it became a party each year on July 4th. And it was really cool. Because we would get together, there'd be cookouts, it'd be a lot of fun. So that's kind of sort of hobby related, where we were actually using the building's parking lot, and we had somebody there to make sure, because obviously people needed to use the restroom. So we made sure there was a way for people to get in who were just there, so they could get to the restrooms and get in and get out. We didn't want anybody roaming the building, obviously, but it was just a really fun way to watch the fireworks on the 4th. When I got married, as it turned out, the backyard of where I live, you can watch in Plano, Texas, the fireworks from the backyard. So I don't have to go anywhere anymore. The only downside of that is so many people come. After about 3 o'clock, you realize you can't leave. because otherwise you're going to sit in traffic for hours. So you kind of sort of have to get your day done early on July 4th. So, I mean, that's a minor downside, but being able to see the fireworks is really cool. And I know you've got some special July 4th videos planned. So I'm not going to top Orlando.
I have one thing I want to show, which is one of the coolest things I own.
I think you've got a couple cool videos to talk about July.
Yeah. We'll put up some baseball stuff, but first I want to show this. This doesn't mean anything to anybody, but it's one of the most important documents in my entire life. It's the ship manifest from the Lusitania on March 10th, 1912. And the 15th person listed here is my grandfather, James J. Burns, who came over from Ireland on the Lusitania on St. Patrick's Day. It's the day that they let him off of Ellis Island. And he showed up to visit with his cousins, and nobody was home because it was St. Patrick's Day. and he said he would, if he were alive today, would echo exactly what Orlando just said from a different standpoint of, different politics and different, life experiences back in Ireland. They were farmers. They had survived the famine. He was he was the oldest, and he came to this country, and he said his entire life, lived to the age of 80, that he absolutely loved this country, and it was the best thing he ever did. And he went into World War I, became a sergeant, and received his citizenship on an army base in Greenville, South Carolina, and in, I believe, 1918, and lived his entire life as a proud American. And my grandfather, and I love Ireland, and I've been back 5 times now, and I'm an Irish citizen. But he said best thing he ever did for himself and his family. He used to send money back. And when we visited my great grandfather's gravestone and all the brothers and sisters, his name was at the bottom because he had paid for all of it from his earnings in America. So that's my July 4th story, and not as good as Orlando's, but I like it.
One question for you: when you go to Ireland, have you ever found collectibles there?
I have looked for collectibles in Europe, and it's hard to find. I think England is where you can find a lot of the tobacco stuff, but when I was in France, when I was in Italy, mostly everything you find is soccer and modern and TCG stuff. I did not look in Ireland though, and that's a great question. I'll be back. I'm certainly gonna go back again, and maybe I'll look for some stuff. So good. Thanks for putting that idea in my head, Uncle Rich. But July 4th in baseball, first thing that comes to mind is July 4th, 1939. Several weeks after Lou Gehrig's, ALS diagnosis, he retired, and Yankee Stadium had Lou Gehrig Day, which is of course known for his speech. But as Uncle Rich pointed out before we even got on to the video, we don't have the whole speech. We have the very end of it. And I wish we had video of the whole speech, which, if it were now, we would have 8 different videos of it. But Lou Gehrig, of course, gave the Luckiest Man speech on July 4th, 1939, and it's one of the most famous moments in baseball history. So any thoughts, gentlemen?
Just really, it was one of the most the greatest and really heartbreaking speeches ever given. And I wish we would have the entire thing, because the end of it alone is just it's heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time.
So the other thing I have is this. Let me see if I can get this going. Oops, no, that's not it. I'm going to share my screen here. Here it is. So yeah, July 4th, 1983, Dave Righetti pitched a no-hitter in Yankee Stadium against the Red Sox. Eat it, Red Sox.
And Boggs being the last strikeout, crazy, because then he played for the Yankees after that.
Well, yeah, and the other thing,
by the way, that's the radio broadcast, because famed longtime Yankee announcer Mel Allen was doing the TV broadcast that day.
Yes,
for the cable network.
Yeah, it was before MSG existed. I think it might have been Sports Channel it was called back then, and they hired Mel Ott for a couple of years in the early 80s, even though he was, deep into his 70s at that point. And yes, Mel Ott is the announcer, and I wish I had that audio. I thank you for pointing that out, Uncle Rich, but that was the video I found. So it's on.
It's a great video to see. I was just pointing out, when you're a Yankee fan, you remember Mel Allen.
Of course. Here's one pointed out. July 4th, 1961, speedster Harmon Killebrew hit Minnesota Twins' first inside the park home run. There we go. Couple of other July 4th things. I should add that when I read Phil Rosenzweig's great A Splendid Season book recently, he pointed out that in 1912, there was a no-hitter on July 4th pitched by this gentleman, George Mullen. So I went and cheated, as Orlando calls it, and I researched, and I came up. There have only been 3 no-hitters on July 4th. Pitched all 2 of them early time, pre-war times, and Dave Righetti. And the other one is New York Giants' Hooks Wilsey threw a no-hitter on July 4th. I believe 1908, 1912 for Mullen, and 1983. And those are the only no-hitters that have ever been thrown on July 4th.
George Mullen was one of the few pitchers in one season to win over 20 games and lose over 20 games.
Yeah. He also was one of the pitchers in, speaking of Cuba, when the Tigers won they won the pennant down. Yeah.
He went down to play against the Cuban team. Yeah. When the Tigers came down. And that was the first, 1909 were the first Cuban baseball cards ever produced. And it had the Detroit Tigers team and a couple of the teams from Cuba.
Yeah, I'd like to find that Mullen card someday, but it's probably going to be expensive.
Super rare. Less than 5 out there.
Don points out July 4th, 1934, Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson were the only battery of Hall of Famers in Major League Baseball to be part of a no-hitter. So I am technically wrong. If we're counting this particular event, then there would be another no-hitter on July 4th, and it would be Satchel Paige. Yes. So the other one is, if you're a Mets fan, you remember July 4th, 1985. You remember this, Uncle Rich? In Atlanta?
Yeah, that game kind of lasted and lasted and lasted, almost as long as John Newman's block party last night.
Inside joke, but a good one. So Mets and Braves play just a regular July 4th game. It's a night game. And at the end of the game, the Braves have scheduled fireworks. So, unfortunately, the game goes 19 innings and is most famous for a home run in the 16th inning, down 1 run, 2 outs, 2 strikes. A pitcher who was perhaps one of the worst hitters in the history of Major League Baseball, Rick Camp, hits a home run to extend the game. But actually, I think that was the 18th. And then the 19th inning, Camp comes out to pitch and gives up 3 runs. And the end of the game was 16-13 was the final score. The Mets won. Keith Hernandez, although it was an extra inning game, hit for the cycle in the game. And the game ended at 4 a.m. local time. And as promised, the Atlanta Braves set off the fireworks at 4 a.m., angering everybody in the area.
By the way, the Atlanta Police Department got a whole bunch of phone calls after that, too. Like, what is going on? Are we under attack?
Well, it's funny because it was the summertime, so I was working at a job, and July 5th was not a holiday. So I had to go to bed on July 4th. I watched the Mets game until, I don't know, 8th or 9th inning, went to bed and expected, oh, okay, whatever, and read about it in the newspaper the next day. Maybe I didn't even read about it in the newspaper. Maybe I heard about it because the newspapers printed early and they wouldn't have been printing it at 4:00 in the morning. But I forget how I heard about it, but I was like, what?
Well,
and then of course you get highlights and stuff. There was no internet in 1985, but it trickled, the information trickled down. But I remember I'm glad I didn't stay up, because if I had stayed up, I probably would have gotten up 2 hours later. But that's the other July 4th thing. There's a few others, but fun discussion. We've taken up half the show with July 4th and USA, certainly. Good morning to Laura. How are you? And so we've got a couple of hobby discussions, as you can see from the rundown. PSA national prices came out, and I have a little graphic for it.
Crazy high prices.
Yeah, I have thoughts. I should say I will not be at the National this year. I've made decisions and I've talked about it multiple times. But I don't know. Oh, this is the other one. That's, of course, I forgot this one. Nolan Ryan, his 3,000th strikeout was on July 4th, 1980. Thank you, Dom, for that information. I had forgotten that one. So, yeah, good point. The plastic, it's more expensive to get plastic than it is to buy silver. Anyway, so I mean, I think what they're doing is essentially saying, do not send us your 1960s common cards for your registry. If you're going to get something graded at the National and you want it to turn it around, it's got to be worth thousands of dollars. And if you give us a card that's worth thousands of dollars, we will grade it, but we will charge you a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, $220 is the lowest. And, you can go all the way up to $12,000 to grade a card. I don't even have a card in my collection worth $12,000.
I don't know if I have a card in my collection worth $12.
Oh, well,
agree with both.
We talked a little bit about forms of governments and their negative parts of certain forms of government. But capitalism does have issues, because capitalism has to be tied to morality, and in this particular circumstance, putting a piece of cardboard into a piece of plastic shouldn't cost $12,000.
I want to get into what Zach just posted, because that's actually a topic too coming up. And it actually ties with one of our second topics tonight.
Yeah.
And recently in New Jersey, where I grew up and not too far from where Dan lives, a father's son was robbed of somewhere between, depending on which newspaper report you read or which TV report, $150,000 or $250,000 of graded Pokemon cards and $12,000 of cash. Last year at the NSCC, there were several cars broken into at the end of the show. I explained the last time I was on why I think getting more badges is important, but that's a different subject for a different day. But he's asking about insurance when you're not getting shipped. PSA has tons of security at the show, but if somebody really wants to do something, they'll get your card. And so that's a legitimate point, that they have to have security at the show and they have to insure your cards. It's a very legitimate point. And it's a very difficult concept, because we don't, we want to be a friendly hobby, and yet we've spun so far out of control in some ways. We have to have lots of security at almost every show we do. I know at the Dallas Card Show, there are cameras everywhere. There's tons of police, 700 tables, and trust me, there's a lot of both covered, and it's very safe, and things still happen at the Dallas Card Show. We haven't had anybody walked out in handcuffs for a while, but there was a time where every single show we were having 1 to 2 people being walked out in handcuffs.
Yeah, and as far as what they call the insured value, really they just want to know the value of your card, so that is going to determine what they're going to charge you for the card. It's more like the card value, a card ladder value. Now, yes, if something happens and they damage it, that's the amount that they're going to pay you for it. So you got to be careful that you don't undervalue it, because there was a situation like that I think somebody said their card was valued $25,000, but it was actually valued $50,000, and then PSA ended up, even though the card was valued $50,000, only paying what they said the value was. So it's kind of tied into the value of the card, not truly the insurance. Because yes, you're going to get the card right there either the same day or at the end of the show. They're not going to ship it.
And by the way, it was a $25,000. The person claimed the cards were worth $25,000, but when he submitted them at a PSA event, he called it $12,500.
That was it,
which brings up a different case about should you actually declare your full value, because PSA will upcharge you, which is a different subject for a different day that I don't want to get into. But in that case, PSA had a very legitimate case. He said the cards were worth $12,500. They offered him $12,500. I mean, for crying out loud.
I mean, again. So if they're handling a card, I'm trying to look at the maximum value of the maximum assured value, $250,000 for the $12,000 card. So I mean, they're supposed, they're supposed to be professionals. They're supposed to be people who can handle this kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, they've got security. PSA has security, no question about it. Their own personal security on site. And if they don't, then they're committing negligence. But I don't know. I just don't see this as something that, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're insuring against their own incompetence in a way. If they're able to, if they can't handle a card, they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And as was said, I think it was Zach said, they're not shipping it. So what are they insuring against? And so $12,000 is just completely absurd.
It's crazy because
$200 is absurd for a $1,500 card.
They're literally going to take around the same time to grade, a $500 card than a $100,000 card.
Yeah.
And they're going to slab it the same way in the same plastic slab, the same flip. There's no difference, but because of the so-called value of the card, they get to give you that massive tax, I guess.
Well, I don't think that's entirely true. If you have a Wagner, you're going to spend a lot more time grading a Wagner than you are going to grade a typical Pokemon card. So you're basically right up. But there are delineations in that you will spend more time looking at certain cards because you know that they're worth a lot more money. Plus, PSA will make sure that the Wagners, the 52 Mantles, the really big cards, they have their senior graders there. Guess who's going to be grading those cards? It's not you or me. It's going to be those senior graders who get paid good money and have a lot of experience on
but Rich,
they don't get paid $12,000 to handle one card.
Agree, Rich. They're not going to spend any more than 5 minutes looking at any card there.
No, that's true.
That's pretty much
They only spend 30 seconds looking at a TCG card.
Yeah. They may spend a few minutes looking at that 52 Mantle.
So this comment brings up something. I watched Chris Sewell put out a new video this morning, and one of his discussions is the fact that somebody had a Wade Boggs rookie, not even a rookie card, Wade Boggs autograph card, graded by PSA was like $80, graded by JSA CGC was like $40. And part of the problem, and ostensibly, the CGC card just looks better, presents better. JSA, as far as I'm concerned, are better autograph analysts than the PSA people, and yet we're paying twice as much for that card. And the reality is that people don't, and that's why PSA can continue to charge the prices they charge, because we, as the hobby, have not taken it. We give more money for PSA cards, which I don't. it's just simply not. It's not in my it's not in my hobby that I'm giving more money to PSA. It's just the way it is. And so maybe it's the problem is it's partially our fault. This disgraceful group of prices is our fault. I mean, we have empowered, we the hobby have empowered PSA to screw us from behind like they're doing at the national. And frankly, I don't want any part of it. And as 1 Million Cubs says, go to a different company. I do not have a graph like that for the CGC prices. Uncle Rich, you mentioned that you had seen them. What did you think of their prices?
CGC and Beckett have posted their prices, and SGC is going to be at least taking submissions at the national. I saw that too. So we are fully vested in all the grading companies being at all the key grading companies, and when I say key, this is no slight to the tags, the arena clubs, the people one level below those four. I'm sure they will be there too. So you will have a lot of options at the national to grade. And I don't want to sound like a PSA apologist, but Chris Carlin, one of our fellow panelists, has explained on these shows very clearly why all this insurance goes on with PSA. So, and Chris, I know he works there, but he's very well spoken on it, and he explains why very well. And even Bo explained in his post about why, damn right we're insuring their cards. There was a post from 1 Million Cubs, Bo Spencer Thompson, 3 or 4 comments ago, and he's right. He's absolutely right. They're handling cards. You're paying $200 for a card. It better be worth at least $1,000. Darn right you're going to have insurance.
That's my alternative grading these days.
Yeah.
A beautiful one touch from Penny Sleever.
I'm going to be dropping off some cards at SGC. I still like the Tucks. I still believe in them. And the prices are reasonable, and I know I'm going to get it back, in reasonable time compared to the PSA, bulk rates or whatever they have. I mean, because, it's just not worth it to me. I don't have that high end of cards to submit to PSA right then and there, but to have SGC take them home to Boca and grade them there and mail them to me, I'm good with that.
Well, you can drive there.
I'm coming up on 3 months.
My I'm latest 30 minutes SGC, away.
Yeah, my latest SGC is coming up on 3 months, and it's not even in grading at this point. So, it used to be a month. Now it's 3 to 4 months, and that's like you said. It's compared to PSA, it's not as bad, but it should be better. Let's put it.
And honestly, just like Orlando, if I was going to have anything I really wanted to have graded, I'd bring it to Beckett, which is literally 5 minutes from my house. I can drive there. I went there once during rush hour. It was 5 minutes, or I didn't go there, but I went. I did the timing, and it was 5 minutes there during rush hour. So that's close enough where, if I'm going to do something, I'll make the appointment and drop off stuff there.
Yeah.
Wait, rush hour?
Rush hour, like 8:30 in the morning. I actually tested it at 8:30 in the morning for some. I was going somewhere else, and I figured, let me test this to see how long it actually takes, so I can talk about this someday on a video.
Well, PSA's new Jersey City location is one stop on the PATH train from my job, so I've gone over there a couple of times.
In Jersey City, if I remember correctly.
Say that again.
Don't they have graders in card graders in Jersey City, if I remember correctly?
I'm not sure. I just submitted.
Okay.
Actually, I think one of them, they said they had to send it to California because of the nature of the card.
Okay.
But I'm not going to be doing that anymore. Well, actually, it was this. It was not a card. It was a ticket. 1948
tickets are
World
now being
Series.
done in the Plano office.
Yeah.
PSA has a ticket office in Plano, not too far from where I am.
So, okay, you did bring this up, Rich. It's the what happened in Jersey, South Jersey. So what's interesting about this is, you have, well, I'm a criminal defense lawyer, so I'm pretty well versed in what crimes are, and to look at the the circumstances and determine what's the underlying thing here. And in reality, it says armed thieves. This was not some sort of crime of passion or some crime of opportunity. It was a bunch of guys coming up, or a couple of guys coming up with guns, knowing who their target was, and then driving away in a BMW. So the robbers had a BMW. So they there was some knowledge here or inside knowledge here. $150,000 worth of Pokemon cards and $12,000 in cash, and there was some pistol whipping going on, and it was a pretty brutal thing. But the thing about it, and Rich, you talked about security at shows, and we could talk about that too. But this didn't happen at the show. It happened at a parking lot some distance from the show after loadout. And how do you guard against something like that? How do you prevent people from understanding where the money's going when it's going off site, and those guys with their guns in their pockets aren't anywhere in sight? How do you protect against that?
It's hard. I know, and I'll just talk about the Dallas Card Show.
Yeah.
It's the Waters Creek Convention Center, and unfortunately, it gets so busy that it's literally 6 or 7 floors of the garage. But I almost think you have to have, during closeout, people wandering. When I say people wandering around, 1 or 2 security people at that area as well, or 1 or 2 police officers, in addition, just to keep an eye on things. I mean, I know I went to the last show about 3:15 in the afternoon, because to show how security conscious we were, ComC, where I work, was set up at the show, and they asked me to come. The person who does the booth asked me to come to just make sure there were extra bodies there to close the show down, because the most dangerous parts of shows are load in and load out. And this was a loadout, and one person went and brought the cards to where they were going to be shipped, and it was an easy access for him to get. FedEx office is literally across the street. Very little is going to happen to him doing that. He gets the cards into the car. They go across the street. He drops them off. It's all good. But we have computers. We have other things there. We have the setup. And because it's 12 minutes from my house, they asked me to keep some things here in Texas. But they wanted to make sure that nothing happened with loadout. And you have to be careful. And this is part of what I talked about badges. But I got there at 3:15 in the afternoon on Sunday, and anybody could have walked in anywhere. And that's one of the most dangerous things. You need to have almost extra security during load in and load out than you do during the show, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually true. It's really weird. In fact, at one point, the Dallas Card Show wouldn't let you start setting up until, and I'm sure they still do this, until all the cameras were set up. We will not let anybody set up. In fact, when I was doing the show once, I had to tell a couple of people, you got to leave, because if you don't leave, we can't set up. And they asked me to do it because I knew them, and I explained, if you don't leave, none of us can set up. It's like, okay, I got you.
Philly Joe has a good comment there. And you have to remember, it's not just they're getting robbed at the shows. Some of these guys, there was one I remember was followed from the show. They followed their car to a restaurant. Yeah. And then when they got down to eat at the restaurant, they broke into their car and stole their stuff from their car. Even today, I still see too many dealers that are at the shows by themselves. And you need to have at least 2 people if you're a dealer at the show. You can't just be there by yourself. And at some of these small shows, I see it. One guy at the table.
Yeah, I mean I do my own. I don't have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of cards, but I do have enough money on me and enough cards to be a victim. But the local shows that I work at, one of the local shows, shout out to Matty Steven on Staten Island. He's a former police officer. He has 2 security at every show. They are either active off-duty police or retired police officers, which means we know what they've got in their pocket. And they actually affirmatively guard the load-in. And the way that these shows are set up, you can park right near the door, and there's a security guy at the door watching you load in or load out. And to me, that's the safest show that I work in terms of the local shows. But again, the Philly Joe's point is, and this has happened, as Orlando said, what about tracking me? You know I've just loaded in thousands of dollars worth of cards, and I've got a wad in my wallet or in my pocket. What's to stop them from following me and doing it off site, which is exactly what these guys did in Jersey. I mean, it's not worth the time to hit up somebody like me, but $150,000 worth of Pokemon and $12,000 in their pocket. I mean, that's a victim waiting to happen. And the problem is, of course, you security can only go so far. And I'm just concerned that we're making ourselves in the hobby sitting ducks by not exercising maybe a little more security. And I think it's it might have been, Zach said, if you had that much money, you would have your own security. Why not? Howie Chasser did it at the National in 2024, had his own private security guard because of the nature of the inventory that he had on his table. And, is it an expense? Certainly it's an expense. Is it worth it? Maybe it is,
Yeah, and Dan, let's talk about collectors. People are going to go to the National with thousands of dollars worth of cards, and you got to be careful. You can't be by yourself. When I went to Atlantic City, I had to walk to the hotel, to the convention center and back to the hotel. Hey, it was not a pretty sight. Let me tell you, I was worried. So I always made sure I had somebody with me that could walk with me. And, you got to be careful at the National. Don't be flashing your cash out. If you're going to do a big deal, sometimes, ask the dealer, can I go behind the booth? Don't be videotaping. A lot of YouTubers do it.
Yeah.
They'll videotape the deal, putting out all this cash on the table. There are people watching you there. They know what you have. So just be careful, not just the dealers, but the collectors.
Okay, Dan, a few things. One, the people who did that robbery, if they're driving around in BMW, they have enough money to pay you when you become their lawyer.
I'm not admitted in Jersey, but I have done cases in Jersey by, having my co-counsel be a Jersey admitted lawyer. So I have done cases in Jersey. So give me a call, guys.
Right, and we got an experienced hobby defense attorney here. Second, Alan Rosen talks a lot about the buys he had made over the years. The late Alan Rosen. Alan Rosen never went alone to any buy, unless he really knew the person. And what I mean by that is, like, there was one case. He went with me, and I go, you're fine. This person doesn't have a gun or anything. And then we did a couple things like that. But, unless it was vetted by somebody he really knew and kind of trusted on the subject, he never went alone to any deal. And that was on purpose. And 3, we were talking about security. And I have a slightly different thing now at my synagogue show, because after October 7th, things became very different. But even before October 7th, we started having, because of the shooting at the Allen Outlet Mall, not having to do with anti-Semitism, no less, but less than 10, 15 minutes from our show, there was that Allen Outlet Mall shooting where 10 people got killed. And thank goodness there was a police officer there on an unrelated call who happened to stop the shooter, because otherwise it could have been much worse that day. And we have a security guard or we have a police officer there. And, basically the show, let's say on Sunday, runs from 10 to 4. Well, he's basically there from 9:30 to 4. And most vendors, almost every vendor is out at 4 o'clock. We get everybody out on time. And I tell people, because we're in a synagogue, we're actually, for the overnight, we're the most secure building you know of. If anything happens, the police will be there quicker than I can actually make the phone call, so to speak. But, we understand just how important security is.
Yeah.
And that's hard to understand. When I set up at a show, I always figure if somebody stole something from me, I always figured they needed it more than I did.
Yeah, well, especially since you have the cheaper stuff out, whereas your cases have the more expensive stuff. So that's what I do.
Yes, and if somebody steals from my cheap, and I would put when I had before I sold out one of my multitude times, I would put my absolutely cheapest stuff, let's say, on the corners, where if somebody took something from them, okay, the card is going to be $5 or less.
Yeah, exactly.
Fine. It is what it is.
Well, the other thing that I've seen, even at local shows, not necessarily like sports card guys, but the Pokemon card guys have cameras, their own personal cameras on their tables. And I saw a guy the other day with a sign that said, "You are being recorded." And, whether it's true or not and how much that means, I think it has some effect. So, you see occasionally these videos on YouTube of, guys, little, ring camera right on his table, showing somebody stealing. And it happens. Doesn't have to be $100,000. It can be 20, 30, 50, $100, couple $100. And suddenly your show that you were doing pretty well at, you're doing less well. So it is a problem in small aspects too.
Dan, quick 5 minutes before we shut down on FIFA.
Yes, United States.
Well, not just
can I just say
United
one thing?
States. Go ahead.
Let me just I will give you the floor, but I want to say one thing. FIFA. Why is the United States not playing on July 4th? Please, what the heck? Go ahead.
Yeah, we got Canada playing on July 4th. What is that? But yes, you're right, Dan. I got to tell you, I was not a soccer fan. I thought it was the most boring sport, 0-0, 1-1, nothing, those type of games to me were boring. But I got to tell you, this has been the most exciting FIFA tournament I've ever seen. Yesterday's game with Argentina and Capo Verde was an incredible game going into double overtime with, the previous champion Argentina going against probably one of the teams that shouldn't even been there, the smallest country, Capo Verde, and they went head to head with them and tied the game in overtime and ended up being an incredible game. And USA is playing awesome. I mean, I've become a fan. I got to tell you, it's really changed my the way that I look at soccer now, or football, and watching them play here in Miami. I haven't been to the game, but I got to tell you, the amount of enthusiasm that are here, the teams, the countries that have come here. I mean, Scotland came here after they went to Boston. I think they drank all the beer over here also. I mean, the Norway team with the rowing and the, of course, USA and Argentina with Messi, who plays here in Miami, playing the game here last night. I mean, the crowds were just incredible. And it's just great to see people from other countries, tying it back to July 4th, being so glad, happy of America, saying how great America is. It's great to hear people from all over the world saying how great America is. And that's just really, it's just been an incredible tournament. And anybody who hasn't been watching, you better start watching, because the games are getting better and better every round. And now we're in the round of 16.
Yeah, USA in the round of 16 is fun. I feel like, go ahead, Rich. Sorry.
Switching back to hobby-related stuff, I've talked about how the local store, which is actually, this wasn't at my local store, but this is at one of their chain of 30 some odd stores, but it was drivable, had a trade afternoon on a Monday for World Cup stickers. That's all it was. And they did some business, but not as much as they would have liked. And they drew 3 times as many people as they expected, all of whom were just trading their stickers. It was so much. I expected it to be less. I'm glad I didn't bring my wife. But on the way home, I stopped at my local card store, which is part of their network, got the album, which they were giving away, and bought a few sticker packs for her. She is addicted. And I explained to her, this is not for money. We're not making money out of this. This is, when she heard the box was $100 for the sticker, she goes, yeah, I'm not buying the box. I said, no, we'll just buy some packs here and there, as long as USA's in there. But she is really enjoying the whole concept of putting the stickers in the album. And, and I think for everybody there, when I was there, it was really hot because there were so many people. It was hotter than even New York City is right now. But it was so encouraging to see people actually just trading, not looking for value. And there may have been a couple looking for value, but for the most part, they were trading the stickers to finish their albums. There was like a culture. And I remember pre-pandemic, many years ago, when my local card store really was my local card store and not part of a conglomeration, every 4 years, the day the World Cup sticker books came out from Panini and the stickers, there'd be 15 or 20 people who would come into the store, buy the boxes, and just start trading among themselves. And they wouldn't come back to the store for another 4 years. Literally, they would come every 4 years to do that. And so it's always encouraging to see people actually doing with these items what you want them to do with the items, which is have fun. To them, Lionel Messi is the same as whichever, Weston McKenzie of the USA. If they need it for the set, it can be a 1-for-1 trade. It's okay. That's what card collecting was 60 years ago.
Back to trading cards.
Back to trading cards, yes. This is trading stickers. It's really fun to see people getting back to it. So I'm encouraged whenever I see something like that. And money is important in this hobby, don't get me wrong, but it's always fun to see people actually collecting for the point of collecting. When I set up at shows, and as I said, I don't do a lot of that anymore, but I always figure with a couple of exceptions, everybody's coming to try to beat me. And the question is, how much do you let them beat you? And I mean, it's kind of sad, but true.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, it has been, as I had anticipated when I saw the list of people who would be on this show, a great pleasure. As always, Uncle Rich, wonderful to see you again, and nice chatting with you. Orlando, of course, the greatest, and having you on July 4th, I knew it was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be this good. So really, really so pleased. The chat was engaged and into it and having fun. And, Dom said, what did he say? Hope to see this trio on again here soon. So do I. So, folks, happy birthday, America. 250 United States. Go, go, go. When's the Sunday? I think Sunday tomorrow, I think is the soccer game. We're going to have to deal with the fact that Balogun picked up a red card and isn't going to be able to play. The guy who scored a goal also got a red card, so now we lose a goal scorer. But we'll see what happens. If USA wins on Sunday, I think it is.
I think it's Monday.
I think it's Monday.
Is it Monday? It's Monday? Okay.
Yeah.
They move on to the round of 8, which would be pretty awesome. But we'll see. Anyway, folks, this has been Hobby Hotline, and thanks for coming in.